Bears, blog, boys, you know it all, computer, analytic, geeky nerds. Michael Schneider, Tom Cavanaugh, the Bear, blog, boys, know-it-alls. Doing some podcast somewhere. Nobody wants to hear you. Geeks, you pencil-pushing, skinny jean-wearing geeks, you.
Coming to you live. Actually, we're really coming live this time, Snyder, from our mama's basement. This is the Bears Blog Boys podcast. I'm your co-host, Tom Cavanaugh, here with my good buddy and other co-host, Michael Snyder. Snyder, a very special announcement for the people. The Bears Blog Boys have partnered with OnTap Sportsnet. We will be coming to you guys live now every time we record our podcast. Most likely in the mornings, we'll be doing live shows. So our podcast will still be the same. You can still find us on the same platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. All of that is not changing. It's just we are now going to be doing live shows with OnTap, and you can find us on YouTube, on Twitter. We might be doing Facebook as well. We really haven't promoted it to the level that we want to, that we've joined with them because this is kind of a test run for our first episode, work out some of the kinks before we really want to launch off with this. But Snyder, buddy, how you doing and how you feel to be on the live podcast waves?
Yeah, super excited to announce that we have partnered with OnTap Sports. Definitely, really cool to kind of reach their audience and, with their resources, extremely thankful for everything. But yeah, I think live, makes it a little bit more cool, a little bit more engaging, and a little bit more pressure just to, consistently crank out shows. And hopefully, we're just in a morning slot, allow for more engagement. Pop it on, as you're working from home, grinding through those emails and doing any admin work or anything. You can kind of pop us on the side. So yeah, I hope to just be that consistent, live, stable in the morning. It kind of reminds me of like when I'm heading to work early in the morning, ESPN 1000, David Kaplan, like that's like been a staple on my routes to work in the morning. Hopefully we could reach some of that type of audience, as we move forward. So again, super excited, really excited to again, kind of grow our audience. Tom, I think we do an amazing job of combination of grinding out film. Eye test is super important, context there, but then we also give you the super advanced stats, super efficient stats and everything. So again, I really hope we can grow and really get our voice out there and just give that fan that, that raw, best of both world, in-depth analysis here, in particular to the Bears.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up to basically some of the new audience that, the obviously the OnTap subscribers and the, fans that follow their work. OnTap is obviously an awesome platform. I've done work with them in the past, been on podcasts of theirs in the past. Do a lot of draft work with them. But for those who don't know us, I'm Tom Cavanaugh, obviously my co-host, Michael Snyder. We have had a podcast for a while, and we are now partnering with OnTap Sports. This is not a new podcast. The Bears Blog Boys has been around for 3 years, I believe, 2021. So 4 years, actually. Wow, Snyder, we're getting old. For 4 years now. And yeah, we really pride ourselves on giving fans the full perspective. And obviously we have our takes, but we really want to lay out all the information. And then obviously the fans feel free to do what they want with that information. But really where we try to hammer the point home when we have takes and stuff like that is to really lay out all the evidence to support what we think. So that's, like Snyder said, film analysis, that's advanced stats. We really try to leave no stone unturned and take a really big in-depth look at the Bears. That's kind of why we want to have a different perspective. I think we do have a different perspective. And I'm glad that, the fans of OnTap that don't know us will hopefully appreciate that perspective. And hopefully we can deliver to you the way we have been since 2021. But Snyder, I'm excited to talk about our topic today, which we kind of just came up with on the fly, but I've wanted to do this for a while. We're going to be talking Chicago Bears players superlatives. Snyder, I don't know, is there any other categories that you thought that I was missing? I was trying to not be all positive because there's only can be so many breakout players every single year. So they're pretty positive. Is there any other categories you think I missed?
No, I think you hit it there, Tom. I think everything there makes sense. I don't think you left out anything.
Okay. All right. So why don't we start off with, I just wanted to get the box score number statistic predictions out of the way, and then we can kind of get more to like the narrative analysis with some of these categories for the superlatives. So why don't we just kick it off with the first one, Snyder? And that was the rushing yards prediction. So whoever's going to lead the Bears in rushing yards, that's kind of what we're going to be doing for each major statistical. I didn't include passing yards because if it's not Caleb Williams, something went horribly wrong, whether that being with injury or whatever the case. So I didn't include that one. I think that one's pretty speaks for itself. But rushing yards, it may also speak for itself given how the Bears running back room is currently constructed. But I do think there are other avenues and other ways you can get to a different leader. But Snyder, who is your prediction for the rushing yards leader?
Yeah, by default, it's going to be DeAndre Swift. I just think that he is the most talented guy in the room. I understand he has his flaws. We've been very vocal on that. I just think that he's going to get all the opportunities in the world. I mean, you combine that with the offensive line investments. You combine that with Ben Johnson and his rushing attack, and you combine that with, hopefully Caleb keeps the chains moving. I think there are just too many opportunities, and I just think with DeAndre Swift, what he stands out from the rest of the room is he's by far the most explosive, right? I think he stays on the field a lot on passing downs because he is a talented pass catcher there. He did display that last year. It's not about the box score might tell a different story, right? Like I think there's a scenario if he continues to dominate the touch disparity like he did last year, fully aware it's a different coaching staff. I'd be surprised if he rushed for anything less than 1,100 yards. And then, we'll be very vocal on the efficiency and the advanced stats with that. But just from a pure box score perspective and just being the most talented guy and what I think is going to be just him dominating the touches, I think it's kind of clear that DeAndre Swift is going to be that guy by default.
Yeah, I think it's hard to say anybody but DeAndre Swift. He was also my guess. I don't know if he'll have the same workload as last year, but like even if he doesn't, I still think he'll be the lead guy by default. Yeah. Like to some extent, I think Roschon will factor in more, or I don't know, maybe Munungai. I think Roschon. Hopefully, they're holding out. Not hopefully, but I think that's where my head is. That. Like after the round 2 guys, they kind of just viewed Roschon similar to the rest of the guys in terms of a 1B to DeAndre Swift. And like you said, Snyder, I think DeAndre Swift's explosiveness will just he'll be able to break off longer runs and have more explosive plays and be able to accumulate rushing yards. So he's also my guess for the rushing yards leader. I do think Roschon will factor in. I don't think he'll be extremely, if anything, Roschon will be like the guy who gets like 4 yards every carry. And I just don't think that's going to be a guy who accumulates a lot of rushing yards. So I am also with you there, Snyder. The next couple categories is where it gets interesting because the Bears receiving room is really crowded. They obviously add Colston Loveland, Luther Burden this year. Rome Odunze is obviously poised to have a bigger role. And then DJ Moore, he's kind of the incumbent number 1 guy. So that's receptions. So Snyder, who is your guess for who's going to lead the Bears in receptions?
That is a tough one, right, Tom? And the reason it's so tough is because here with Detroit, you had Amon-Ra St. Brown slotted in to that slot role. Like there was no one eating his snaps. And I get they play a little bit more condensed. So you kind of have, you're a little bit tighter and, maybe more than one receiver does have that kind of easy button, get off the line of scrimmage, given Ben Johnson's offense. But in this case, Tom, it's so hard to predict because DJ Moore, ton of experience in the slot and out wide. Rome Odunze, in college, ton of slot experience, willing blocker as well. I know last year he's more on the outside, but don't overlook that he has the ability there, right? And then Luther Burden, right? Once he gets back rolling, he at Mizzou only played in the slot. Like the disparity from his slot to outside numbers were huge, right? He's very slot dominant there. But again, he has the ability like DJ Moore and Adunzi to win outside, win off the line of scrimmage. We just haven't seen that there with him. But then you factor in Colston Loveland and running 12 personnel, that Colston Loveland's going to see some slot snaps, right? So you look at, and even Olamide's a kid, don't like overlook him. Like he might have that like sneaky little role in the offense as well. So like you just have so many guys that you could line up out wide, you could line up in the slot. Like it just doesn't seem to me there's a sure thing defined role for that, like your X, Y, Z wide receiver. It's really uncertain there. So that makes this conversation extremely tough, Tom. But when I look at the most proven, a guy that probably may not have to say the best after the catch, but has a way better. I think Burden is probably the most talented after the catch, but I think he has some obstacles to climb before he's consistently on the field. I do think he's too athletic to leave off the field. I think there's going to be week in, week out special packages for him. But if my money needs to be bet, it's going to be towards DJ Moore, just being the most proven guy, having the versatility, being very explosive after the catch, being very strong at the point of catch. I just have to assume it is DJ Moore, Tom. But again, I say that with there's a couple different avenues where it might not be him, and you could talk myself into it, and I'm totally listening.
Yeah, I actually had Rome Odunze for the guy who I thought is going to lead in receptions. Now, I have a different answer for yards, actually, but I do think in terms of receptions, maybe I'm wrong. I just think that DJ Moore, if he could very well, I just don't know if the Bears offense is going to be as gimmicky as it was last year, and like just like all the schemed up production. Like I don't know if they're going to lean into that as much as they did, because like on all the RPOs and stuff like that, DJ Moore was getting pumped with targets. And I think there are going to be elements of that. Like that was what Caleb did really well in college. Those quick release throws, those quick throws to the perimeter whenever defenses were lined up in off coverage, and they kind of gave them those easy yards. So I think there's a very good case that you can make where DJ Moore is in of all of the receivers is in like the most manufactured role. When I'm looking at what Ben Johnson's offense wants to do, and it's a lot of in breakers, a lot of condensed sets, DJ Moore obviously does all that stuff, but I think Rome Odunze is like the possession receiver that, in terms of a skill set, that would make sense to generate that type of offense through. I think Rome Odunze is the guy that I always come back to, of a guy who's really good at snapping off his routes, is a guy who's really good at getting in and out of his breaks. And I think that he is going to be the volume guy, and DJ Moore is going to be the guy that they're going to try to get explosive plays through. Like that's kind of how I'm rationalizing it, because obviously Rome could be explosive too, but he's explosive in the way that you're attacking the catch point with him. Like that's where he's going to be at his best down the field. Whereas DJ Moore can like stride away from guys down the field and then obviously turn small plays into big ones. And I don't think Rome Odunze has that trait necessarily. So I think I think DJ Moore by default will be like more of the explosive guy, and Rome Odunze will be the guy that they trust more to move the chains, more or less. So that's kind of how I rationalize this, Snyder.
And it makes a lot of sense, right? And it's funny, Tom, when you talk about DJ Moore and you talk about Rome Odunze, it's like here, league wide, I think there's a lot on the bone that we haven't seen from Rome Odunze after the catch, right? And I think Ben Johnson is that coach who's going to put his guys in opportunities to make guys miss better than Odunze seen last year. But when you compare him to DJ Moore, yeah, DJ Moore is the better yak guy, right? But then when you're the other way around, if you're comparing, the contested catches and who just has the stronger hands, better ball skills, oh yeah, Rome Odunze, like that is his calling card. But DJ Moore is still good at that, right? He has very strong hands. Like you've seen him come down with balls. It's just funny. Like when you compare the two of them, I think they're jack of all trade wide receivers, but it's just like, it's funny how one does one better than the other, but we're not trying to say that one's not good at that.
100%. That's a good way. They're very different receivers, and they're going to be doing different things, I would assume. because like I don't think DJ Moore is like a speedster, but like he's definitely shown he can be a vertical threat down the field.
Right.
Like and I think he can be even more so that like if he gets a free release and is just allowed to like run through the defense, I think that he'll be a lot better at that than Rome. Like Rome is a guy who can like stack a corner on the outside and win in tight quarters when making plays down the field. So that's why, and also with to go on to your point about Rome kind of being unproven, he was in such a weird role last year where they kind of just had to like fit him in wherever he fit in, right? Because they wanted DJ Moore to be the X, they wanted Keenan to be the slot, easy button of the offense. And then Rome just kind of fit in wherever they needed a spot. So he was being asked to do so many different things where I think his role, obviously Ben Johnson's offense different and they like align guys up everywhere, but I think he'll have a more clear vision of what he wants Rome Odunze to do. And the routes I come back to, I'm looking at his reception perception profile. Matt Harmon obviously does a great job charting these receivers. He had an entire green route tree on all the in-breaking routes. And that is where Ben Johnson is going to have a lot of these receivers run, right? He had an 84.6% success rate on the dig route and a 78.3% success rate on the slant. And I think those are going to be two huge routes in this offense, in breakers over the middle, because Rome has the route chops to kind of break guys off and be reliable in those ways. And DJ Moore does too. But I think DJ Moore is at his best when he doesn't have to break off his routes at all. And he can kind of just keep at one speed and really, really maximize his yak ability. And that's why for our next category, Steiner, I kind of already alluded to this. For yards, I had DJ Moore as the yards leader because, again, I think Ben Johnson's all about explosive plays as well. And I think DJ Moore of this offense is going to be the explosive receiver.
You know, I see where your head's at now, Tom. I mean, that makes total sense now, right? That you have Rome Odunze being that, very reliable possession. I forget what game it was. I think it was like a fourth and really long where Caleb threw that back shoulder to Rome Odunze, and he just really, really hauled that in. You'd probably see a little bit more of that. But, yeah, now you see more explosiveness with DJ Moore. So I see where your head's at there, Tom.
100%. Who did you have for your yards? Snyder, who did you have for your yards? Your yards leaders for the Bears? Because that was our next category, receiving yards.
Yeah, so like that's the thing, Tom. So I'm gonna sound maybe a little bit biased, but again, I still gonna have DJ Moore there as well. Just because I just assume he is gonna be that wide receiver one. After your explanation and kind of seeing it, now I could probably lean toward Odunze being the reception leader, but I can still go either way. But yeah, receiving yards is DJ Moore just because of what he can do after the catch. I think he's still a special mover. I think he always makes 1 to 2 guys miss. But then with Ben Johnson, he's going to put you in situations on the field where you're going to have a more clear lane to where if you do make 1 to 2 guys miss, you're probably going to have a lot of green in front of you. I think Ben Johnson it's kind of going to be like that Sean Payton, right? What he was so great with like Michael Thomas there. You've seen it with like Reggie Bush, like stuff like that, just putting guys in situations to make the most after their yards, after the catch situation. And then you see that last year a lot with Jamison Williams, right? His receptions weren't really high. He wasn't running a crazy, routes or anything. He had to know what it was. He wasn't making a lot of guys miss tackles, right? But his yak was so high because all he had to do was catch the ball, and he had the wide open lanes. Now you combine that with an explosive athlete like DJ Moore, and then add his ability to really make guys miss, even through contact, because he's strong as hell. That's going to lead to what I assume is to a ton of explosive plays with DJ Moore to really get that yards up. But now I could see why. Why you have someone with receptions and then more with the yards. So I am more aligned with you on that now, Tom.
Yeah, I think you brought up a great comparison with Jamison Williams. And it's funny, in 2022 and 2023, DJ Moore both in the top 10 and receiving yards on 20-plus yard passes. So he's been an explosive player throughout his career. And I think that when people look at Jameson Williams as a comparison, they'll be like, DJ Moore, Jameson Williams, they have nothing in common. And yeah, I think Jameson Williams is probably a better pure vertical threat. I mean, he is a better pure vertical threat. But when you really look at, like, and you just broke this down perfectly, Center, about how Jameson Williams was used with the Lions and why he had so many big plays and explosive plays and yards after the catch, is he was really being used closer to the line of scrimmage and like kind of in the shallow parts of the field, and just being put in favorable yak situations and really being able to use that speed to clear out a defense when, you know, they'll have a deeper concept down the field and they'll have Jameson Williams running across in the shallow parts of the field. And he was able to make the most of those opportunities. And I think DJ Moore can be used in a very, very similar way to where he is that explosive guy, that the receiver that you want to get matched up on linebackers and stuff like that. That's DJ Moore's game through and through, because linebackers aren't going to be able to run with DJ Moore. So yeah, I think he's going to be a bit more volatile in terms of volume, but the big plays will be there more so than Rome. So I think Rome will have more consistency and be relied upon in like the downs where you got to have it. But DJ Moore, no doubt about it, like on those those big play action plays, I think that's going to be his game through and through, which is why I think he will still be the Bears leader in yards when it's all said and done. And we didn't really like talk about the rookies at all. I just think it's such an uphill battle, Steiner, for Luther Burden right now. And then obviously Colston Loveland. I know they're expecting Loveland. They have more of a clear timetable on when they're expecting Loveland to get back. I think they're expecting him to be back at the start of training camp. But, you know, whenever you miss time, Ben Johnson just alluded to this, whenever you miss time as a rookie, your process is already, your offseason process is already so cut short because you're training for the NFL draft. You know, You're training for the combine, stuff like that. You're not really with the team. You don't have any background information on the offense that you're in. It's just so much all at once. So whenever you're missing any time, you're really, really put behind the 8 ball as a rookie. So I think just any expectations that, like, you know, either one of those guys is going to hit the ground running right away, I think would be a little misleading or a little bit misplaced. I'm expecting those guys to kind of gradually get better as the season goes on.
Yeah.
And I'm not putting those expectations on their plate. I think it's way fair for the Bears wide receiver 1, who's making all the money, to have, you know, be a leader in receptions and yards. And then Rome Odunze, who's, you know, on that track to be that second-year breakout player, which we've seen all across the league. For receivers specifically, that second year is usually when those receivers break out because they had a full offseason to be in their offense and really focus on their game.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, not to get too off the rails, off, you know, the main reason for the pod, but when it comes to Colston Loveland and Luther Burden, I know this sounds like a little bit homer me, but I'm not really evaluating them this year based off their stat line, right? I just think, and you have put in so much work understanding, laying out why, helping fans understand why they drafted Colston Loveland, because you could be so exotic with him, right? It's more of like a mismatch chess piece for Ben Johnson. I mean, the thing is with Colston Loveland, because you're going to look at the Sam Laporta stat line, right? Like year 1, he had what, like around 800 yards and a ton of touchdowns, right? But Sam Laporta didn't have a Cole Kmet, right? And I know they're totally different and everything, but I think the Bears situation could be better because they had Brock Wright in that Cole Kmet role, and Cole Kmet's better than him as a blocker, provides more as a receiver. So you have maybe a little bit of, you know, target and stat line, you know, competition there. But the things we could do with both of them, you know, how you can line up Loveland in the slot, or maybe, you know, in the goal line or in the red zone, you're lining him up out wide. You have Kmet in line, you know, like that makes stuff hard for the defense, right? What you want to see from Colston Loveland is like, you want to see him being slippery off the line of scrimmage. You want him to show his route running ability. You know, you want him show him, you know, that he could be physical, you know, as a run blocker and everything like that. Obviously, it's bad. We'll be the first ones to admit, like, well, wait a minute here. But I don't expect Loveland to be the leader in anything, like target, anything like that, you know. But it's more about impact, right? Like, down to down and seeing how he can adjust. Because tight end, again, it is a hard position to learn. But I think there's a lot of reasons to keep him on the field. And then the same thing with Burden, right? I think he is an ideal wide receiver 3 early on. I think that could be a very, really elite depth piece moving forward. If anyone gets injured and, and he's developing really well, he's your next guy up. I think that's a great situation. I think you might see some packages maybe where he's in the backfield. So just having him on the roster from a team building perspective, from a depth perspective, and knowing his ability and how he doesn't have a ton of pressure on him to develop and produce immediately, I think it's a great situation for him and just the Bears in a whole. So when I'm evaluating these two, I just want to see these guys develop. I want to see them continue to build a role. And I'm not evaluating them on their box score stats per game for the season. I want to see their impact, how they're used, the versatility between the two, and just seeing them grow it, and there's not a ton of pressure for them to produce right away. And it's not like I'm having low expectations. I could just see their impact beyond the box score. And I think that's how fans should be evaluating those two.
Yeah, I think it's a really good way to differentiate the two and kind of just place some realistic standards on what's going on with the rookies. And
Right.
I think to further your point, Steiner, just having those guys on the field, I think just makes defenses think twice. And that's going to open up so much more for Ben Johnson, allow him to tap into those players' unique abilities, but also just kind of game plan around what kind of matchup problems they present for defenses. And that's why those players that's why Ben Johnson gravitates to those kind of players. We saw that in Detroit as well. So I think that's a really good way to kind of just play some realistic yet, I guess, a positive way of looking at a guy's presence without them having to catch a million passes for you to justify the pick. All right, why don't we keep rolling through this though, Snyder? Our last kind of accumulative stat, which I'm really curious to hear your take on, is sacks. Who do you believe will be the Bears sack leader in 2025?
It's kind of easy answer. Maybe the easy way out, not too much to debate with me there. I think it's Montez Sweat, right? I think when he's healthy and he's going, he has a high motor. He's super athletic, super long. When it comes to guys on the edge, definitely the most proven pass rusher. And then when you talk about the interior, I know Grady Jarrett is a proven sack artist, but I got to see it, right? I got to see, is Grady Jarrett like a rotation guy? You're going to keep him fresh? Is he a pass rush specialist? I know you're paying him a ton of money, but I know that was the market, given kind of like that pass rush specialist on the interior. I just think Montez Sweat sees the field the most out of the defensive line. And I think he's just the most proven pass rusher. I think there's going to be times where, maybe just because he's so long, he's so athletic, he has his motor, that he's going to fall into some sacks as well. So, yeah, I got to go with Montez Sweat. And Tom, it's just really important for the defensive line in general that he is the sack leader. We really need him to keep this engine going on the defensive line. I know that's a different conversation. But just given, his body of work and him still being young, still being fresh, I think it's got to be Montez Sweat.
That's probably the favorite, right? I will not disagree with that at all. I think you really are convincing me on the fact, because I had a different answer, but you're really convincing me on the fact that he's going to play the most snaps and he might just by default have the most sacks. My pick was Gervin Dexter, and this is kind of foreshadowing with one of our categories, one of our last categories. I have just loved everything I've heard from Gervin Dexter and what people have said about him this offseason. He reached out to Grady Jarrett right away to work out with him. He kind of arranged that with the interior defensive linemen. We're all working out in Florida because he lives there, and he kind of led that charge. I love to hear that. Obviously a third-year player who's really kind of getting into his own and is not just a young player learning. He's kind of being a leader. He's taking charge. And then I heard him on an interview with Fox Sports' or just I think Fox News' Stephanie Carlson talking about how he's picked Grady Jarrett's brain. And he was like, Grady's been in the league for so long that he's just like he just knows what fronts the offense is in, or he knows the protections, and he can call those out right away. And like he's like, I'm usually like behind and just trying to figure it out on the fly. And I think that's why interior defensive linemen take a little bit to develop, because they're still learning.
Sure.
There's so much more to learn than just an edge rusher who's supposed to get up the field. Like I think there's a lot more that goes into playing interior defensive lineman. So all those things, and him really attacking his weaknesses and understanding that there's a mental side of the game that will really help him kind of cheat code his way into more production, not just being more physically dominant, like really thinking behind what you're doing. I've been thrilled with kind of his breakdowns and his awareness to where to grow his game. So I believe he is going to be the sack leader signer, and I kind of already alluded to it already. He's also my breakout player as well. I've just loved everything I've heard about him this offseason.
I like that take, Tom. I mean, Javon, he is a professional, right? He is serious about his craft. You see the way he's kind of taking care of his body, how he's gotten a little bit more lean, added more muscle and everything. Like he takes his craft serious, and I got to give it to Poles there, right? That's a big part of their process, finding guys who love the game of football, and are just crazy about it, right? That's what it takes, right? You could be a super talented guy when you're putting in that work on the field, off the field, digging in the veterans' brains and just being all about your craft. Like you have to be insane with it, right? You have to be really built different to continue to grow in the NFL. And you just love to see it with him. In his interviews, he's so well spoken, Tom. I think he's just a professional. And yeah, I do allude to him maybe breaking out. Like you feel so confident about it, just the way he attacks his craft, Tom. But yeah, I like that take. I could totally see that. My reservation is just only like you just don't know, right? Like you signed Grady Jarrett, you have Andrew Billings, you have the round 2 draft pick. Tom, I'm blanking out on his name. That he's going to be the guy from Texas. Shamar Turner. I was going to say Stewart. But yeah, you have him in the mix. So you just don't know the rotation. I think he's going to be efficient. I think he is going to have a great year. That's why for the sack leader, I have to lean towards Montez Sweat, just because, again, I think he'll probably lead the defensive line in total snaps. And I just think that he has the most proven track record of pass rush.
Yeah, and that's totally fair. I figured you were going to pick Sweat, and that's probably the best guess. I wanted to be a little different. I've just really respected what Gervin, like how he's approaching the offseason, what everyone's saying about him. And obviously he took a stride last year too. So you're hoping that growth is linear, right? He can continue to take strides. And look, I was the first one that was not a big Gervin Dexter fan at all when they drafted him. Like, Snyder, you knew that. Like I had like a day 3 grade on him. I had a lot of concerns about his get off, like how slow he was playing. I know that was the system he was in. And our guy Q in the comments brought up a great point. He was like, it seems like, he said in the comments that it seems like DT has been one of these positions that have taken a couple years to develop. And we've talked about this before in our podcast, but when you look at the context of what colleges are asking their DTs to do, play really reactive, play slow, because the college is an RPO game, right? And they want to keep those guys at the line of scrimmage. It's really hard jumping to the NFL when things move so much faster. You're seeing so much more from a blocking scheme perspective, trying to recognize and ID those things on the fly, that those guys' heads are spinning, right? They're not used to all that is thrown at you in between the tackles, because so much is going on, more so than ever in the NFL. The run games are becoming more diverse than they ever have before. So It makes sense why those guys are taking time. And we saw Gervin take a step even from his rookie year to last year. And I'm hoping that continues with a guy like Grady Jarrett, his presence, how advanced Grady Jarrett has always been at the mental aspects of the game, what he can learn from him. I'm just so excited to see what Gervin can do. So that's why he's my sack leader. Why don't we keep rolling to this list? This is where this becomes a little bit more narrative driven. Inside of this one might also be kind of obvious, but I try to have 2 different answers. But I'll kick it to you first. Who do you think will be the most valuable player of the Bears 2025 season?
I'll take the easy route again, Tom. I think you'll bring up another interesting one, but it has to go with Caleb Williams, right? There's just so much that we gave for him to real, and I think you've seen enough flashes last year, right? Super touchdown to interception ratio was extremely efficient, right? You've seen his clutchness in late of games, but I think what may get lost when you compare his stat line, maybe to like a Jada Daniels, Bo Nix, is Caleb Williams was drafted number one for he has a special arm, Tom. The way he could just fire in a ball in the middle of the field into a tight ass window. You've seen it a lot with Keenan Allen being the beneficiary of that, but we haven't seen someone who could throw with anticipation like that. And you just everything tells you that Ben Johnson is going to make the position easy for him, right? He's going to give him a lot more of an easy button. And then don't overlook, like, he has playmaking ability. Like, he could run the football. He's got to get the deep ball timing figured out a little bit more, which I think it will. But at the time, there is just so much there around him, and then just so much there in his own talent that can really, really drive this thing, right? We're talking about NFC North is a very, very competitive division, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at Caleb Williams, you look at Ben Johnson, that's going to be the driving factor on what can potentially separate us from that. We have the most talented offensive mind head coach in the division combined with the most talented quarterback. I know the production isn't there from the other guys, but I'm just talking playmaking ability, arm talent. That's why the upside with the Bears, I think, is at its highest is because of the quarterback. Combine that with everything around and what you did with the offensive line, Tom, I just think there is just huge breakout potential, right? I think the sky's the limit with Caleb, and I think there's just so much talent there, Tom, all around that they could really make the most out of it.
Yeah, I think however you feel about Caleb Williams, and obviously we're definitely on the optimistic side because we were huge fans of Caleb coming out. We didn't really see last year being on the table with how poorly it went. And obviously there was a lot that went into why last season was such a disaster and was mainly because of the coaches that were hired. But anyway, however you feel about Caleb Williams, I think the most valuable thing to the Bears 2025 season is how his trajectory goes developmental wise, right? Like how their season is going to do really is tied to how well Caleb Williams is going to play. And I say that because this is not the Detroit Lions of 2022, 2023, or even 2024. This is not a team I think that can rely on just being a running football team. I don't think that they're built that way. They obviously made upgrades on the offensive line to be a better running football team, but I don't think they have the backfield nor structure to be the rushing team that the Lions were. The Lions had two good backs. The Bears might not even have one, right? And that's not going to be their identity. I think they're going to be a balanced team, but the Bears have built their team around Caleb. Like you said, they added Colston Loveland. They added Luther Burden with their first picks. They added Roma Dunze with their first pick beyond Caleb Williams last year. This is a team that's going to be built to pass the football, right? And how Caleb Williams operates in these circumstances is going to be the most valuable thing to the Bears. There's really no other way to argue it. I don't think this is going to be a team that plays great defense and like runs the ball and be conservative. That's not the coach they hired either. Ben Johnson is extremely aggressive. He's the most he wants to adopt that fourth down personality that the Lions did. And I really think that they're going to have to be efficient as a passing team. He's alluded to that already too, Ben Johnson. So everything that they've done is to help Caleb Williams thrive as a passer. It's just I think he's going to figure it out. It's just whether or not, how quickly does he figure it out throughout the season for the Bears to make some real noise in 2025? Are they going to be more like the 2022 Lions where, it doesn't start off as great, but then they kind of start to find their footing and kind of foreshadow what is to come in 2023, 2024. They don't make the playoffs in 2022, but they, there was some linear trajectory of their path from just improving as a team as the season go on. Or is he going to hit the ground running and the Bears are going to be an instant team to be worried about right away? Or is it not going to go great at all? Like all those outcomes are on the table, but they're really tied to how Caleb Williams is going to play in 2025, Snyder. So I absolutely agree with you. He's the obvious choice here. The other guy that I had, just to be different, we don't have to belabor the point. I had Kyler Gordon. I just think the defense is so different when he's off the field because he is so important to their coverage and how they defend the run. Like all the things that Matt Eberflus was able to do last year with defending the run with lighter boxes and really leaning into stuff he had never done before in his career, kind of changing all the pre-snap looks and having a lot of post-snap rotations. Like that was never really Matt Eberflus. I think he was able to do all those things because he was so confident in Kyler Gordon and filling the run, just being relentless and not having any fear when filling the run as a nickel corner. He was basically like another linebacker out there who was their best intermediate coverage player. So I just think he's such an important part of the modern NFL defense, and that's going to translate right over with Dennis Allen. We saw Dennis Allen get a lot of good play out of a guy like Alontae Taylor, who I don't think is nearly the talent Kyler Gordon is. And whenever Kyler Gordon was down, this Bears defense was different. So in terms of a most valuable player on the defense, I think it's Kyler Gordon. And I'm hoping that ascension just continues. He had his best year last year. He earned an extension. I hope he's able to stay healthy all 17 games. Because if he is, I think this Bears defense can be one of the best coverage units in the NFL.
Yeah, I like that take, Tom. Here, we're not ones that ever going to give Matt Eberflus credit for much, but I will give him and Post credit for the players and play style that they built this defense around. Just guys who play with their heads on fire, through the whistle, attack the ball. And Bears fans love that style of play because really that's what Lovie Smith, and you look at the Bears glory days, that's what we remember, right? Just having these guys who were just crazy on the field and just everyone attacking the ball. And that's how Kyler Gordon plays, right? And then in Flus's system, the nickel is really that guy, right? And I think that only gets better with Dennis Allen. I think Dennis Allen's a better coordinator. He's more proven, and he's shown to get even more out of that role. I think he did it a lot with you said Alontae Taylor, but I think also Tyrann Mathieu. So I could see a growth. I think on the field, like the eye test, like Kyler Gordon, he's a football player, right? He's explosive. He is but even like after the play, like that guy is just totally amped up and everything. So I could totally see that, Tom. I mean, willing tackler as well, but don't overlook like his coverage ability too. Like he's damn good there as well. So yeah, I see where your head's at there, Tom. I think when you the eye test, I think you're gonna see Kyler Gordon definitely being the most impactful.
100%. I'm really excited to see what Dennis Allen does with him as a blitzer, because that was kind of the things we were seeing more so last year than ever before. And that's why it was a huge reason why I thought he had a breakout season last year, because he was playing in a lot more an aggressive role. And I think that's even going to continue even more so with Dennis Allen. We got another comment from Squeegee. Brisker and Bryant together make it very hard on opposing quarterbacks. They can both play in the box or cover and can switch without telegraphing it to the quarterback. I think Brisker was another guy in terms of a breakout player I was thinking because of him in this defensive change. I think that's a really, really great point, Squeegee, to make about what Brisker's presence can do for this defense. I don't know if he'd be my most valuable defender. I still think I would give that to Kyler Gordon, but I think there's definitely an argument. And I think that if there's a player that needs to break out, I mean, Brisker's probably at the top of that list. So I'm right there with you in terms of his importance and what he can do for the defense. I just think I'd still lean Kyler Gordon a bit more. Why don't we keep this rolling, Snyder? Most valuable offseason addition. So for our listeners, we've talked about kind of who we believed some of our most valuable offseason additions were. Snyder, but for those who haven't, who was your most valuable offseason addition?
Here, year one, immediately right now, it's got to be Joe Thuney, right? That guy, all-pro player, his mind, his play style, his IQ, everything to just help Caleb provide more stability in the interior and just being the most proven and the most talented of the additions. I think it's got to be him, right? I think his game ages like fine wine. And I just think he is going to be that anchor that really strengthens the entire unit as a whole. Combine that how we got him basically for free. We traded a 4th round pick, got it back. I love every single thing about the process of Joe Thuney and him being on this line, Tom. I just think that was such a home run move, if not the most important move of the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard not to say Joe Thuney. He has just been in so many good experience situations to aid Caleb Williams and this offensive line, bring it together, have them playing as a unit. I think there was a reason that they were out and aggressive to pursue Thuney because of his leadership and because of all the experience he's had on championship teams. He's played with Tom Brady and Mahomes, two of the best, I think, meant on the mental sides of the game. I guess the guys who prepare and in terms of protections, I mean, maybe the two best of all times at their command at the line of scrimmage. So everything he's been able to learn from Brady, Mahomes, everything he brings to the table himself, it's really hard not to say Joe Thuney, an all-pro guard. He's still playing at a very, very high level as a guard. Mine was Drew Dahlman, same type of, maybe not to the extent that Joe Thuney is bringing, because, Joe Thuney's Super Bowl champion, maybe not to that extent, but Dahlman having experience calling a run game in Atlanta, working with young quarterbacks, it sounds like he's going to be the one calling protections, at least at first, and then they're going to try to kind of expand Caleb Williams' plate as he gets more comfortable within the offense. So I think both of those guys, just having those guys as guys who you can trust to not put everything on a second-year quarterback, is just going to be so huge for this offense. And it can really just allow Caleb to focus on the quarterback things. Okay, focus on getting to 1 to 2 to 3. Focus on what coverage the defense is in. We'll worry about the fronts. We'll worry about the run game. Caleb, you just worry about, we'll take some off your plate. Worry about getting your fundamentals and your feel in this offense, and we'll take that off your plate. I think both of those players are just going to be so important for this year.
Yeah, that would have been my second one, right? If I kept yapping on the subject, Drew Dahlman would definitely be the next reasons, Tom, for all the reasons you laid out. I mean, Tom, you could have, and we said this you could have paid Drew Dahlman $5 million more, and I wouldn't have cared, right? Just because the value there is so much beyond, and I think we got him at a great deal as well, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I couldn't be more fired up about the process of acquiring Thuney and Dahlman. And just, again, there's just so many reasons why they're going to help Caleb so much, Tom. They're such valuable additions there.
100%. I don't know if you can go a different direction than those two guys. I mean, maybe someone can argue. But why don't we get a little negative center? Because we've been kind of positive here.
Mm-hmm.
We're kind of laying out the best case scenario for every single player. Who is your most disappointing offseason addition? Or I'll frame it in a different way. A year from now, who's the guy you're expecting to have the Tremaine Edmunds conversation of like, oh man, maybe we shouldn't have made that signing?
There's two guys there, Tom, and I think our heads are at the same spot. I know we talk about it all the time, even off the record. Here, I'm going to go on the defensive side of the ball with Deo, right? That's a lot of money for a guy who doesn't really have the pass rush production. And I think the reason – what was the contract, Tom? Do you know it off the top of your head again?
I believe it was 3 years, 32 mil guaranteed, 48 altogether if he sees the all of the contract.
Yeah, and it's about what, like a $17-20 million cap hit moving
Something
forward.
like that.
Somewhere in that range, right?
Yeah.
Here's my problem. I understand why Ryan Poles went after that type of defensive lineman. Very long, strong. He's not going to lose the penetration at the point of attack, right? It's not a guy who's going to get totally dog walked like, defensive lines in, the Ryan Poles era of the past, right? And you understand what that does. So when you're getting pushed back like that, the way teams could run all over you, you see what that does, right? So I understand why they went after Adeo. And then that 4-3 Dennis Allen system, you just want to win with 4. So you need guys who can, collapse the pocket, penetrate. My issue, Tom, is there's a role for that, right? And I didn't think it needed to come with that contract that you laid. I don't think it needed to come with that $17 to $20 million cap hit moving forward. I just think that I get what you wanted to accomplish with him. I just think that wasn't the right way to do it. I think that, we mentioned like a Trey Hendrickson. I think that potentially stops you from getting a Trey Hendrickson or, maybe a big free agent moving forward. Does that stop you from spending a first round pick on an edge rusher next year? So it's one of those things that's like, is it going to be a bad sign? I don't think so, right? I think he is going to be impactful, but then you have to align that with his price tag, right? And you are getting tighter on the cap moving forward. So I just think that you have to, when you're evaluating Deo, you have to take the value in consideration and maybe what it's preventing the team as a whole moving forward, Tom. And then again, it might just, I can't think of like a good comparison. Like I always try to get like a Bears comparison, but I don't know. It might just be one of those things, Tom, where we really overpaid for just a dude when we're not getting an $18-20 million impact type of player, and I think we're going to be wanting to get out of that sooner than later, kind of like the Tremaine Edmonds argument there, Tom. So that's the one move that, again, still leaves me scratching my head.
Yep. That was one of my guys for sure. And I knew we were probably going to take the same too, because we've already talked about this before. But again, this is for some new listeners. I was certainly not thrilled when they made that signing. I had wrote about Deo and how I thought he was kind of a buyer beware candidate because his age was really, really intriguing. He had a good sack season, I think, last year in 2023. That would kind of make you believe that there's more meat left on the bone there. And I just don't think we have enough evidence to really, really expect that and hope for that. I think that the cases of a Trey Hendrickson where they are just all of a sudden all pro players on their second team when they hit free agency, those are very much outliers, and those are not kind of like what you should hope for. But again, Snyder, I think you brought up why Deo made sense for this defense. This is the exact type of player that Dennis Allen wants. He wants bigger body guys with length who can hold the edge and push the pocket. I think at the best case scenario, Deo does that at a solid level. Right. I just don't think that there's anything elite about his profile. And again, they didn't pay an elite contract price, so it's not crazy. But they did pay sticker price for role player duties, and they paid a premium because he's young. When I think you could have just kind of pieced that together. If that was what you were looking for, I think you could have went out and signed, a Michael Hoyt or like on a 1-year flyer, or I know he got like 3 years, $8 million, but I probably would have rather done that. You could have signed Calais Campbell. You could have taken that journey, right, where Calais Campbell was on the 1-year veterans minimum deal. You could have signed Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. And I know those guys probably don't have the ceiling, the quote unquote ceiling outcome that Deo has, but like, do we really believe Deo is going to be that much better of a player than he was in Indy, right? I personally don't. And that's maybe where our valuations differ with the Bears, and they might think that they can get more out of him and he can be a breakout player. I just think with pass rushers, when they haven't shown it in 4 years, it's a bad gamble to think that they're going to show it here down the line in their career. So that's why I was lower on that move. I don't want to beat a dead horse. I've been pretty adamantly low on that move. Jonah Jackson was the next one. Maybe this is one I would just be flat out wrong about. I know Ben Johnson obviously has familiarity with him. That was a huge reason they wanted to bring him in, just being able to plug and play him in this offense. He knows the verbiage. He probably is going to not really have any hiccups in that regard because he has so much experience with Johnson. I just think from a talent perspective and on the field, it's been pretty up and down for Jonah Jackson. I think that he has strengths as a player, definitely in the run game in specific schemes. I think he's a good outside zone blocker. I think he's good whenever he's down blocking in a horizontal fashion. I think that there are definitely some concerns in pass protection, and I definitely think there's some limitations in the run game as well. But mainly my main concern with Jackson and why I think we may be disappointed a year from now is he has never been able to stay healthy throughout his career. So is this just another Tevin Jenkins situation? And what's worse now, beyond the Tevin Jenkins situation, is you're on the hook for his money now. Like, you can't really move off of him next year if he is a super inconsistent player and is hurt all the time. You're kind of stuck with him next year. So that's one I could definitely see us having the conversation of like, man, maybe they need to do something else different at right guard, because it's been okay at the very best with Jonah Jackson. That was my only other one.
Yeah, see, when it comes to Jonah Jackson, Tom, it's maybe not the individual player. Like, I'm not mad they took a swing for him. I think the reason he only cost a sixth-round pick is because the Bears took on, if not all, the contract, right? So I think there was value in that. But my issue is, like, why did you have to touch his contract, right?
Yes.
Like, you had the Rams. I know the Bears took on the contract, but the Rams are still responsible of their dead cap hit, right? Like, so that you got kind of a little bit of break on that point as well. The Rams already paid his bonus out, stuff like that. Right now, he is on the hook this year for just under $15 million, and then next year for $17 million. And there's really no out, right? That makes sense, right? It's going to cost you. There's going to be a dead cap hit of $14 million. Yeah, you would create $3 million, but at that point, he is probably going to stick around. And then the year after, that's kind of flip flop. There, you have an out of $13.5 million that you can create, but you just really locked yourself into a really unknown, a guy who struggled last year. I get he was injured, did struggle last year, hasn't stayed healthy. And again, I mean, I can't shut down the argument like, hey, that's Ben Johnson's guy. Had success with him in Detroit. He knows the system. He knows the lingo. And that is valuable. Don't get me wrong. And again, I said I don't mind, the price we paid taking on that contract. I thought that was just a fair value on taking the swing. I just don't understand why we felt the need to really restructure, extend, give him more guarantees. I would have rather have seen him, okay, prove it. And fine, we had to pay him a little bit more. That's fine. Like, he proved himself. He's worthy. I just think they kind of just got ahead of themselves. They kind of just did something there that they didn't quite need to do. I thought you should have evaluated him for 1 year. Here, if he's worthy of the contract, give it to him. If not, you have a full arsenal of picks, and you're getting tighter on cap, that maybe you could have made a better value signing. Again, and me, Tom, I'm all about overpaying, right? Drew Dahlman, overpaid. I don't care if you would have overpaid him by $5 to $10 million more. I would have been all for it, right? Joe Tooney, all pro, super valuable, fourth round pick. You extended him, no problem there, right? The Jonah Jackson is like one of those, like, all right, did you really need to do that for this guy? I wish they could have just maybe been a little bit more patient, kind of like the same thought process they had with Braxton Jones, right? Like, you don't need to extend him or anything. You're evaluating him, see how he comes back due to injury, see how he battles through the competition. I just wish they may have had that same mindset with Jonah Jackson.
Yeah, that's I never had a problem with the draft capital they gave up, and
Right.
I thought it made sense for both sides, because the Rams at the end of the day were trying to dump his salary, and the Bears were looking for offensive linemen they felt comfortable about. So that was never my issue. You hit it on the head, Snyder. My issue was always, why did you double down on this when
Right.
there's a lot of question marks surrounding Jonah Jackson? So that was why I'm a little lower on that move. And again, he's in a position right now where he's probably the Bears' fourth or fifth best offensive lineman. And I've said before, if he's going to work out, that's the situation you want him in. If you're relying on him to be anything more, I think you're going to be disappointed. But the Bears will not be, even though what they're paying him might not say that. But so I think that it's not going to be like a move that brings the Bears down. It's just probably a move I wouldn't have made.
Right.
All right. Why don't we round this out, Snyder, with our last two? So for breakout player, I kind of already said it for anyone that's tuned in that didn't listen to us earlier. My breakout player was Gervin Dexter. I think I really love what I've heard about him in the offseason, him kind of taking a leadership role, picking the brain of Grady Jarrett. I just have loved everything I've heard from that. And then he took a step last year too. So I'm hoping he can take another big step this year. Snyder, who was your breakout player?
I gotta go with my guy, man. I've been pounding the table him all off season. It's Tyreek Stevenson, man. I think he fits the Dennis Allen mold of that press, physical, man corner. And I think he's gonna be put in the best position he's been to succeed. We know how his season was up and down, right? And I think he's taken accountability for that. I like his demeanor, Tom. Talk about his length. You talk about his ability to stop, break on the ball, and disrupt passes through the point of a catch. He's really physical, right? He knocks that ball loose. I forget the stat, but I think he was top 15 across the NFL in pass breakups there, right? And then, he's not a highly penalized player as well. Everyone talks about, like he's immature, this, and that. I don't know. He made the mistake against the Commanders, but I don't see an undisciplined player on the field. Like I think he 5 penalties last year, when I think ranked in like the 40s or 50s amongst all cornerbacks who played. I had it at like 20% of snaps. And then I think like there's competition there with Terrell Smith, Zach Fraser. I think he's the most talented out of the bunch, but I think that's going to drive him as well. Like, he's got a lot to prove. He got a lot of wrongs to right, and given the fit, given the talent, given that CB, basically he'd be the third best corner. I think he could really break out, Tom, and really show him being that impactful press corner. I don't think a lot of fans should overlook him. I think you have to look beyond the PFF grade with him. I think there's a lot of factors there that kind of leave a little bit of context out, given what you're asked to do, stuff like that. Go back, watch the film with Tyreek Stevenson. You will see at times a special athlete, a physical guy through the catch point. And I really think the best is yet to come, Tom. So that's the guy that I am very convicted on. I'm not forgetting about, and I think his best football is to come. And I just think you're going to see him take that breakout and just being consistent, being trusted, being in a better role. So yeah, that's my guy, Tom.
Yeah, I totally misgauged who you were going to pick. I thought Rome was going to be the popular candidate between either of us. That's kind of why I lean Gervin, but I also think Gervin's going to break out. Tyreek Stevenson's another one where I don't think I've followed like what he's been doing in the offseason as closely, but I've him going to the podium and kind of owning what he did last year, how he addressed it with the team. I really like that. An immature player wouldn't have addressed it at all. I'm glad he's owned that mistake and he's talking about moving forward, how he's going to be better, be a better teammate. So I've liked those things for sure. And then obviously the scheme change with Dennis Allen, I think is really going to play in his favor. I think it's a great candidate, Snyder. I'm really excited to see what he can do in this defense. I could definitely see him having a lot of pass breakups and being definitely a breakout player for this Bears defense. I do think we need to mention Rome, even though we talked about him a little bit. Squeegee said Rome Odunze is going off this year. Book it. Squeegee, I am right there with you. I mean, I watched all of his snaps against press coverage last year, and the talent didn't go anywhere, right? Like he's still as talented as he was as the 9th overall pick. I think his issues were mainly that he was not really in a role that was asking him to utilize a consistent skill set. Like sometimes he was lined up in the slot, sometimes he was on the outside running different routes. And the big things with him that I noticed is like over the middle of the field against zone coverage, he didn't have the best feel for like sitting down in zone and being kind of like a favorable target for Caleb Williams, when to come back to the ball, when to stop down the voids. He was a very young player with a coaching staff that seems like wasn't really interested in the details of coaching. So I could see why he might have had some difficulties with those things. And if he learns those things and picks them up, like I think he will, like, I don't think I had any of those concerns with him coming out of Washington. I mean, he's probably my second biggest breakout candidate because I just think he's that talented of a receiver. And we also didn't address Kanger 80s comments. Grady Jarrett, if they could have got him on a 1-year deal, I am right there with you. I don't love committing multi-year deals to aging defensive linemen. I did not love that thought process at all. And then Deo, we've kind of laid out our reasons why we're not as high on Deo. It sounds like you're a bigger proponent of the upside he can bring. So, yeah, I mean, in terms of breakout player, Snyder, I think those are 3 guys a lot of Bears fans are looking forward to: Gervin Dexter, Tyreek Stevenson, and Rome Odunze as potential candidates. All right, our last category for our superlatives, rookie of the year. Snyder, who was your rookie of the year candidate?
I think this one's gonna surprise you, Tom, and I'm really coming around to this pick. And obviously there's some stipulations, but I think it's gonna be Ozzy Trapilo, Tom.
Wow. So wait, full transparency. That was mine, but I have.
Oh
some
wow.
other-
Okay. Oh
Yeah,
wow.
yeah, yeah.
I really didn't expect that at all. I think I think that the GM, it made it clear that it's a competition there, right? Pass protection is going to be huge, right? I think that's going to be extremely important. And I think there's a scenario where maybe Braxton Jones just your swing tackle, right? Which would be damn valuable, right? You can do some cool things there. Don't get me wrong, but if Adi Trapilo could be just average, look at the value of that, right? You're not going to have to pay Braxton Jones. You might get a comp pick from him, next year, because you are going to be a little bit tighter against the cap. I don't expect him to spend a lot in free agency. But he seems just so like pro ready, right?
Right.
High IQ type of dude. And, as much as we liked Braxton, and he has shown to be average, I mean, if you're telling me it's an open competition and Trapilo, just shows you a lot more as a pass blocker. And, he's, really getting all the reps because Braxton's injured and he holds it down, Tom. I mean, talk about impactfulness. I think that's going to be the most important thing for the Bears. We mentioned, like, I know what I expect the role for Loveland and Burden to be. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just talking year one, rookie of the year, and what it can mean moving forward and just so much more beyond that. I think I got to roll with Ozzy Trapilo.
He was also my answer. Senator, if he's the starting left tackle, like how can he not be rookie of the year, right? Like he's going to be the most important rookie by far, like because of the role he's placed into. And I think that Loveland, why he was drafted, is very, very important to this offense. They want kind of players who can contribute to the run, can contribute directly, I should say, to the run game and the pass game. But ultimately, if Ozzy is the starting left tackle, there is no way around it. He's the most important rookie. And if he does a good job, he's the rookie of the year. And Senator, I do not take into account like comments at this time of the year about players. I mean, especially linemen. Sure. Like, what can you really learn about offensive linemen in May and June when they're not, they don't have pads on, right? All the reporters are saying Ozzy looks the part. Well, yeah, he's 6'8", 300-something pounds.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't, I'm not learning anything new.
Fair,
what I will say is, though, the messaging behind the Ozzy Trapilo pick, just kind of the differences in style with him and Braxton Jones kind of being a pass protection first type of tackle. And then a big thing I keep hearing the coaches saying is his football IQ is very, very high. And when you look at the system he came from, he worked with Bill O'Brien, a pro-style system, pro-style protections. It makes sense why they gravitated towards him as a guy they felt comfortable about plugging and playing if they had to. So when I hear them talking about football IQ, that was something Ben Johnson brought up very, very early in his press conferences. They want offensive linemen who are very smart and know what they're doing. He said on third downs, defenses are throwing the most exotic pressures that offenses have kind of ever seen. And you need players who can sort those things out and figure stuff out on the fly. And I think that they're saying, or they feel comfortable about where Ozzy is in that process and how quickly he's picking things up. So I've never had any questions about his physical ability, especially in pass protection. It was really going to be the mental sides of the game. And I never thought that was a problem for Braxton Jones, but I could definitely see them preferring their guy who kind of, profiles closer to Taylor Decker, a guy that Ben Johnson literally just worked with physically. And then if he can pick all the mental sides of it as a rookie, I mean, there's really no reason why I don't think he shouldn't be the starter. So he was also my pick. I mean, I guess my next pick center would be Loveland, but again, I think it's really hard to say anybody but Ozzy.
Well, and then here's the thing, Tom. Like, it's no secret, Caleb Williams holds the ball a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like it's high for better or for worse. Who's gonna align better with that type of play style? It's gonna be the guy who's the better pass protector, right? So that's where my mind of thinking is there. I guess the counter argument is there. Like, we know Ben Johnson loves to run the football, right? When you move Braxton Jones and, you make him pull and, he's in open space and you're running behind him. He's a special talent, not special. He's damn good there, right? Like he is a force. He just completely erases a lot of guys and, maybe takes on another guy. But again, what's more important, like that's to be seen, right? Again, Caleb Williams' play style, you lean towards Trapilo. Then you look at Ben Johnson and what he wants to do in the run game. Maybe it's a little bit more Braxton Jones. Like that's like the county argument there. But again, we're gonna have to see how that plays off because if it goes towards the Trapilo side, he's obviously the most impactful rookie of the year. If he can just hold it down, like they're just so much valuable. It's such a valuable thing to have from a rookie year one. It gives you a lot of flexibility moving forward.
And it's fair to mention too that the third tackle has played a lot for Ben Johnson, right? Like Dan Skipper has been a guy who's mixed in a lot of different packages. Like they use a 6 offensive lineman quite a bit, and maybe Braxton Jones makes more sense in that. I think Braxton Jones can be a starter in this league. There's no doubt about that. I think he has his limitations in pass protection. I think he's a very narrow guy who doesn't really have the great range to be ever a high level pass protection or high level pass protector. But like you said, he's really effective in the run game, especially when he's pulling out in space. Like that is where he can be a weapon. And I think there's some situational usage where if, let's say for whatever reason, he's not the starting left tackle by week 1, he'll still play a factor in this role. Like this is not a guy I want to like trade away or anything like that. Like he's very valuable depth. But I just think that the messaging is kind of presenting itself that Ozzie has a leg up in this competition. Because while Ozzie is just a rookie, he's getting all the first team reps with this staff, right? And Braxton Jones is behind the 8 ball. I know Braxton Jones has more experience, but like this is a entirely different system, especially for tackles, right? When you're playing next to receivers and tight ends, like stuff that I don't think the Bears have really done a whole lot throughout Braxton Jones's career. So I just think there's a lot of reasons to point to Ozzie Trapilo's importance. And I'll also say too, Snyder, with Ozzie and kind of the dynamics of what the current situation is at tackle is that Ozzie really, like, to me, can still thrive in an outside zone scheme, like in more of a zone blocking scheme. I never thought like he was horrible in those regards. I thought he was always better at kind of like framing guys off than a guy who's going to generate a bunch of vertical push. Like he's just too tall to do that. He's 6'8". Yeah. So if they want to be a wide zone team, like their offensive line is kind of built. He's another one of those guys too. Like we talked about, like kind of reading the tea leaves and what the Bears want to be offensively on the run game. Drew Dahlman and Jonah Jackson, to me, kind of point to more of an outside zone running scheme. Ozzie, another one of those guys who did that a lot at Boston College as well. So
we got some good comments here, Tom, from Squeegee again. Ryan Poles made it known that his dad, Trapilo's dad, played with Poles' dad at Boston College. I did not know Trapilo's dad was on the field and threw the block for Doug Flutie's miracle. I don't remember the implications of that game, kind of past my time, but I remember seeing it as a kid on the Sports Center, like top 50 plays of all time. So it's kind of cool that he was on the field for that. But I think he asked an interesting question, Tom. So he said Sam Laporta was a tight end 1 in Ben Johnson's scheme. Who was the tight end 2? Do we need 2 prolific pass-catching tight ends, or is the tight end 2 more of a blocker, extra lineman? We talked about that a little bit earlier, Tom. Here, when Sam Laporta was drafted, and he was a high draft pick for the Lions, I just remember that I'll talk, like, always talk about like fantasy and everything like that, and how rookie tight ends don't really hit the ground running. But I remember looking at their depth chart, and I looked at like their tight end 2 was Brock Wright, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think he's undrafted or really late draft pick. I feel like, wow, this guy, Sam Laporta, has no competition in the tight end room. This guy's going to hit the ground running. And he did, right? Like his stat line, I think it was like 800 yards, and he had a ton of touchdowns. I just don't know if that's going to be the case with Colston Loveland, because Cole Kmet's a hell of a lot better than Brock Wright was. And Brock Wright got a lot of snaps during that era for the past 2 years, more of that inline type of guy. But Cole Kmet offers you so much more, like, catch radius. I think he's a better blocker. I think if Cole Kmet is, being covered by, a lower end linebacker. He's going to have some really easy looks there. So I think he is going to have a role, more so than Brock Wright did with the Lions in that tight end 2 role. So I wouldn't just maybe put that as just more of a blocker, extra lineman. I mean, when you look at the contract, yes, is that role maybe going to be overpaid? But I value the depth. I value them being 2 different type of tight ends, and I think they will both impact the game. Even though it's a little bit overpaid, I think I want to keep Cole Kmet around for obviously this year and next, just given the depth and just the versatility between the 2 there.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to differentiate the situation in Detroit to what the Bears have with Kmet and Loveland. And to be honest, maybe I'm jumping the gun here, but I think that Loveland even presents more ability on what you're able to do with him versus Laporta. So like, you don't need to use both those guys as tight ends. Like Loveland can line up as a wide receiver. Like he's shown that he can do that in college. So that's also another thing that I just flat out don't think that Ben Johnson, he did that with Laporta every now and then. There were times where he lined them up on the outside, but as a guy who can truly threaten cornerbacks as a tight end, like Loveland can, or at least he showed he could in college, I don't even think that Ben Johnson had that to really, really tap into. So I think there's a lot more that Ben Johnson can do with this tight end room, because I think the ceiling with Loveland's higher. And then obviously Kmet, I think, is just a better tight end than Brock Wright. I'm curious to see though how Kmet's usage is, because I don't think it will be like a 1-of-1 type of usage as Brock Wright. Like I don't think he's just going to defer as the tight end 2. I think he'll have a larger role. It's just how much of a larger role. I think he'll mainly still be asked to do tight end things, right? Like running the flats, check release, run up the seams, crossers. Like, I don't think it's going to be a super diverse route tree, but that's always where Kmet was going to be at his best anyway. I always thought he was misused by Nagy. And then it kind of got cleaned up with different offensive coordinators, because they were trying to make him as this like do it all tight end. And I never really thought that was his game. And I don't think he will be. I think that's going to be why Loveland was drafted as high as he is, because he can be a do it all tight end that can threaten you in all different facets as a receiver. Our Kanger says about, can Trapilo stop the bull rush, which was Braxton Jones' weaknesses? He's very light for his size. So on tape, I had a lot of concerns with Trapilo. I was like, this guy is like 6'8" and is like 307 pounds. Like that is a recipe for disaster. This is a guy that's going to like let people get under his pads and drive him right back into the quarterback. But really on tape, it was not that big of an issue. I think he does a really good job at establishing first contact, slowing guys down. And the thing that people don't talk about with Braxton Jones and why the bull rush is such an issue is because he's always scrambling, right? Like he does not have the quickness to match really fast and powerful speed rushers, right? He's always kind of late. And I never really thought that was a problem with Ozzie Trapilo. Ozzie Trapilo puts himself in better situations to absorb contact. So I think he'll be better than Braxton Jones at those things. The problem is like the way he's built definitely like leaves you wondering, okay, is this going to be a bigger problem in the NFL? Like a guy who's this upright and tall and light, is that going to be a problem? So I would tentatively say yes, he will be able to hold up for the bull rush better than Braxton, but it still could be an issue.
And Tom, like when you say that, because again, Braxton Jones, athletically, he's a quick guy, but it's different, right? When you're setting your block and it's more of like a footwork technique type of thing, right? Like if your footwork is cooked, you're going to get put on your ass, right? So where do you see it more with Trapilo, Tom? Like he's a little bit more of a technician, isn't kind of like as messy with his feet there. And is it fair to say like that alone can make the world a difference beyond just looking at, the weight for him?
100%. I definitely think if you're like just be able to position yourself better in your pass sets and you're able to cover more ground, even if you are a lighter guy, if you're able to take the block on more square and stay in front where you're not retreating and trying to like cross your feet to cover a spot, you're going to be put into better positions. You're going to be able to take on contact better. If you're in a position to use your hands as the aggressor, that's what you want to see from your offensive tackles, the guys who have been able to do that. That's the thing with Braxton Jones I think people don't talk about is yeah, people rave about his 35-inch arms, but like if you're not in a position to use them because you're always scrambling to get to your pass set points, it's not really going to matter. Your length's not going to matter. You're always going to be on the back pedal, and that's not where you want to be as an offensive tackle. And that's why I think he's had problems in pass protection, why I think those problems will never really change. It's just kind of who he is. A really good athletic test, Snyder, that I always look at for offensive tackles is your 20-yard shuttle. I think that really measures how well you move laterally. Braxton Jones in the 32nd percentile for that 20-yard shuttle, and Ozzie Trapilo was in the 55th percentile. So again, not like anything amazing, but again, that kind of matches on film. Like he's good enough. Like I didn't think it was that big of an issue. Like, yeah, are the better pass rushers? Will they maybe give him trouble? Probably. But again, I never thought it was like a huge issue either. I thought he had enough foot quickness to stick out at tackle and play it at a starting caliber level.
Yeah, most definitely. And Q says it best. Like, yes, Braxton Jones' hands never really developed, and that's what kills him, right? And that's the thing, right? Your instincts, your technique, your feel for the game, and that could totally make or break you, right? You might be that dude by stature, right? You might be able to run really fast and be a hell of an athlete, have the length, but that is just as important, if not even more important, there to see how you can survive with the league. Like you have to shore that things up, because if not, when it comes to leverage, when it comes to be sloppy with your feet, you have these NFL defensive linemen, they're going to get leverage on you, and they're going to put you on your ass, or they're going to take you for a ride, going backwards. So, that's why, like, you got to look like, I know some guys might appear light, but you really have to look at those technical aspects there when evaluating kind of beyond like the stature.
100%. And we don't have to belabor the point, but like I choose definitely on par. Like one way you get around the bull rush is make first contact, like get your hands on the guy first. And Braxton is never doing that because he's always scrambling. And that's a big reason why guys are able to get into his chest. Like the best way I can put it is Braxton Jones is always catching his defender, like always catching, never the guy doing the damage. And in pass protection, I actually thought Ozzie did a better job at kind of slowing them down because he was in better position to do so. So that's kind of how I see it. Obviously the NFL is a different game, right? Like he's going to be playing against way better pass rushers to where it could still be an issue for Ozzie. Sorry, we've been going for quite a while, so we might have to cut it here, but is there anything else you want to add superlative wise before we head out of here?
No, again, just super thankful for OnTap Sports for picking us up, to have the resources. Tom, I mean, to be honest, I was a little bit nervous going into this episode. Like, damn, we're going live. We have a bigger audience. We got more people watching. Obviously, some of the other guys are watching. I'm like, damn, the pressure's kind of turned up a little bit, Tom. But it just feels like a normal podcast now. Once you start talking ball and everything, it all comes very natural. Really, again, feel really settled in. And again, just really thankful for everyone who made this possible, Tom. Those early on nerds really just completely went away, and I just feel totally comfortable and really excited to move forward with this and keep it growing.
100%. I mean, this is awesome. We should have honestly reached out to do, because I love Q and all the guys at OnTap. They've always welcomed me with open arms, and I just love picking their brains about football, talking football. Whenever we're able to do this podcast, so I'm really thankful as well that we're able to share a platform and continue to do live streams. We got a couple comments. Hope you guys do more live streams. Really appreciate that, Kanger. When's our next live? We're going to try to shoot for Tuesday and Thursdays when we're doing our live shows. They might be a little bit earlier in the morning. I was able to have some free time to do this one today to launch our first one. But don't forget, you guys, if you guys have not listened to us before, we have a full archive of podcasts you guys can check out on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We are the Bears Blog Boys. You could find us there. We have a bunch of content we've already done this summer about the draft class, about literally anything Bears related. You guys can check us out. But we will be going live again, hopefully on Tuesday, and we will promote it more. And yeah, just keep tuning in. I'm glad you guys are enjoying the content. We will keep it rolling. But again, a huge shout out to OnTap Sports. Until we meet again, y'all, keep it real. Bear down.
Bear down.